Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's December 3rd. Today, we celebrate a diary entry made by Columbus, as well as the man who introduced the potato to England. We learn about the botanical painter who served botanists and French royalty, and the garden writer who inspired many with his Lancashire Garden Diary. We'll hear some amusing garden prose, and we grow that garden library with a book that helps you make your vegetable gardens more beautiful by strategically adding flowers. I'll talk about the kind of coal gardeners will want in their stockings this Christmas. And then we'll wrap things up with some thoughts on flowers by the Impressionist painter we lost 100 years ago today. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. The website Learning Herbs recently shared a post that featured 5 herbs that are great to start from seed or cuttings for your winter apothecary. The herbs that made their list were rosemary, horehound, mullein, ground cherries, and common sage. And then Tom Oder shared a beautiful story courtesy of his LinkedIn account. It was called The Grateful Tree, and it was perfect because it came out right before Thanksgiving. And what I loved about it is that it proves that there are still some sacred parts of nature that remain untouched by humans. And that's what this story is all about. Anyway, it's a lovely read. So check it out. If you're in the Facebook group, just search for Grateful, and this story will pop right up. And then finally, I follow Ellen Mary Garden on Twitter. And this past week, she shared that she had visited Jupiter Artland in Edinburgh for a private tour, which is something I've always wanted to do. And when she visited the garden, she wrote, "I've never been to a garden that has floored me quite like it. A mix of awe and terror, inspiration and confusion." And then she shared some gorgeous pictures from her visit. And when I replied to her images on Twitter, I said, "Now that's a garden visit." And it'll be interesting to hear what her thoughts are about this place over time. I always think it's fascinating to see how a garden speaks to us long after a visit. Sometimes our first impressions are shadows of a more profound understanding that comes later. Now, if you'd like to check out these curated items for yourself, you're in luck because I share all of them with the listener community in the free Facebook group for the show. There's no need to take notes or search for links. Just the next time you're on Facebook, search for Daily Gardener Community and request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. On this day in 1492, Christopher Columbus noted in his diary, "I climbed a mountain and came to level ground, which was sown with many different crops and with gourds." The gourds Columbus was referring to were squashes that were used for more than food. After the skin had been cleaned and dried, they were used as utensils. And it was on this day in 1586 that Sir Thomas Herriot introduced Columbian potatoes to England. Over 50 years earlier, the Spanish had been the first to discover potatoes, but Herriot's potatoes were the first to reach England. Herriot had spent time in Sir Walter Raleigh's English colony on Roanoke Island in modern-day North Carolina. There he studied not only wildlife, but also potatoes from Colombia. Herriot was also an astronomer. In July of 1609, he created a drawing of the moon through a telescope, over 4 months before Galileo. And today is the anniversary of the death of the French botanical painter for King Louis XIV and XV, Claude Aubry, who died on this day in 1742. When Aubry was appointed painter to the king after the death of his master John Joubert in 1707, he technically didn't have the right credentials because he didn't belong to the Academy of Painting and Sculpture. But the king approved Aubry's appointment anyway, and he lived at the royal garden until he died. Aubry was sponsored by the French botanist Joseph Tournefort to create over 1,000 illustrations for his acclaimed book, Elements of Botany. Other botanists, including Sébastien Vallian and Antoine Jussieu, also hired Aubry to do their illustrations. During his time at court, Aubry painted 24 miniatures a year for 35 years, resulting in nearly 600 vellums for the royal collection. Today, they're preserved at the Museum of Natural History in Paris. What distinguishes Aubry's work was his desire to paint all the known species in both the animal and plant kingdoms. Aubry painted fish and insects and birds and mammals in addition to plants. In 1722, Aubry changed his will. His most prized possession was a cabinet he'd inherited from his former master, John Joubert. Aubry left the cabinet to his friend, the botanist Bernard Jussieu. The cabinet was described this way. In a wood veneer, exquisite paintings of parrots ornamented the panels with their golden border. As you might have already suspected, the genus Aubrytia was named for Claude Aubry by the French botanist Michael Addison. Aubrytia is an ornamental plant, and it grows well in rock gardens. The leaves resemble succulents, and after flowering, a light clip will encourage new shoots. And on this day in 1873, the gardener and writer Henry Arthur Bright began a diary, and it would become known as the book A Year in a Lancashire Garden, one of the most beloved garden biographies of the 19th century. Bright's book would inspire future garden writers like Eleanor Vere Gordon Boyle, Henry Nicholson Ellicombe, Maria Theresa Earle, and Elizabeth Lawrence. And here are some excerpts from Bright's very first journal entry for this day in 1873. These notes are written for those who love gardens as I do, and they are written to convey to others some little of the delight which grows more certainly than any bud or flower from the possession and management of a garden. Lancashire is not the best possible place for a garden, and to be within 5 miles of a large town is certainly no advantage. We get smoke on one side and salt breezes on another, and worst of all, there comes down upon us every now and then a blast laden with heavy chemical odors, which is more deadly than either smoke or salt. Still, we are tolerably open and in the country. These are certainly what the American poet Bryant calls the melancholy days, the saddest in the year. The late autumn flowers are over. The early spring ones are still buried under the soil. I could only find this morning a single blighted monthly rose, a wallflower or two, an uneasy-looking polyanthus, and some yellow jasmine against the house. And that was all. 2 days of early frost had killed the rest. Lastly, the chrysanthemums are in flower. The chrysanthemum has 3 merits above almost every flower. It comes in the shortest and darkest days. It blooms abundantly in the smoke of the largest cities, and it lasts longer than any flower when cut and put into water. If flowers have virtues, the virtue of the chrysanthemum is its unselfish kindliness. In the hybrid beds, I shall plant a number of roots of the Lilium candidum, the dear old white lily of cottage gardens. And as I write, I am told of a recipe using the firm white petals. You must gather them while still fresh, place them unbroken in a wide-necked bottle, packed loosely and firmly together, and then pour in what brandy there is room for. In case of a cut or a bruise, no remedy is more efficacious, and certainly none more simple. And in case you're wondering, at the very end of the journal entry, he's talking about making a potent tincture with petals from a Madonna lily. In Unearthed Words, here's a quote from Bat Masterson, who had a daylily named in his honor. There are many in this old world of ours who hold that things break about even for all of us. I have observed, for example, that we all get the same amount of ice. The rich get it in the summertime, and the poor get it in the winter. And here's a quote from Will Rogers. An onion can make people cry, but there's never been a vegetable that can make people laugh. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Vegetables Love Flowers by Lisa Mason Ziegler. The subtitle for this book is Companion Planting for Beauty and Bounty. As the description of this book reminds us, planting flowers and vegetables together is one of the oldest ways to create a healthy, bountiful garden. But there's more to the method than you might think. Vegetables Love Flowers will walk you through the ins and outs of companion planting, from how it works to which plants go together and how to grow the best garden for your climate. Lisa provides excellent guidance on how to incorporate flowers into a vegetable garden. She offers helpful tips and ideas for stunning vegetable gardens that are full of color. And by the way, the images in this book are beautiful. If you've ever wondered how you can enjoy a year of beauty in your garden, growing both healthy vegetables and gorgeous flowers to boot, this book will be an inspiration. And today's recommended holiday gift for gardeners is Hoffman Charcoal Soil Conditioner, and a 24-ounce bag is available on Amazon for just under $6. And this product from Hoffman is my favorite horticultural charcoal. And if you've never used it before, you're in for a treat. Horticultural charcoal improves drainage and absorbs impurities. And this time of year, after I've brought all of my houseplants back inside, it's something I add to the soil for most of my houseplants. Horticultural charcoal does not burn, and it releases nitrogen slowly, which feeds the plants over a long period of time. And as I alluded to in the intro for today's show, this is the kind of coal that a gardener would love to find in their stocking. And again, you can get a package of Hoffman's horticultural charcoal and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for under $6. Finally, here's something sweet to help you revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is the 100th anniversary of the death of the Impressionist painter Renoir, who died on this day in 1919. There's a little known story about Renoir. For many years, he hung a sign on his garden gate which read, "No Renoirs sold here. Beware the dog." And Renoir said when he was painting flowers, he was able to paint, quote, freely and boldly without the mental effort he made with a model. He said, if you paint the leaf on a tree without using a model, your imagination will only supply you with a few leaves. But nature offers you millions, all on the same tree. The artist who paints only what is in his mind must very soon repeat himself. And it was Renoir who said, "The pain passes, but the beauty remains." And what seems most significant to me about our movement of Impressionism is that we have freed painting from the importance of the subject. I'm at liberty to paint flowers and call them flowers without their needing to tell a story. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.